Fine. Good morning, students. We will start the class now. Okay, it's time. So today we are going to see the continuation of the yesterday's topic. So yesterday we saw the topic called as a state machine diagram. So we saw the important concept how to draw the sequence diagram. I'm sorry, state machine diagram, and what are the elements and what is the law, what is the concept to draw this. So we saw so many new terms of state machine diagram, like what is the state, and how do you represent the transition, and what is the meaning of a trigger or an event, and what is the God condition can be given, and what how do you represent the initial pseudo state and the final state of a state machine diagram. And we saw one more topic called as different types of states. We saw like a composite state and a choice pseudo state or a junction pseudo state. Okay, so these are the so many types of states we saw. So based upon the problem, we will be using these types of states. Fine. So we have two ways of representing your state. One is just putting a rectangle, a rounded rectangle box, okay, and then mentioning only the state name there. Fine. So in another way is I'll be writing all the attributes. For example, I'll be mentioning the state name along with the interaction act. I'm sorry, internal activities or internal transition activities, okay, like entry, exit, do. So these are the activities we can say. For these activities we'll be specifying the actions or behaviors. Fine. So we can represent our state by like this. Fine. So we'll get inside this topic today. We will see how to draw this state machine diagram in your visual paradigm, and we will see some more examples. We will start from a simple example to a complex example. Fine. So we have 5 main steps to draw this state machine diagram. Fine. So what is the first step is I have to define the state. Okay, so for a particular case study I have to find the state actually. Fine. That is what my first step, and I have to use a box to use this represent this state. Fine. And my second step is I have to describe this step. It's an optional one for for a clear documentation thing. I'll go for this describe state. Okay, so when the user someone is clicking on this state, they will be knowing what the state is going to do. Okay, what is the current attributes or what is the operation of this particular state. Okay, it's an optional one to give. So I'm going to add a documentation to a particular state, or you can say I'm going to describe a state. Fine. And then comes the next one is step 3 is draw the transition. So once I'm done with the states, I have to give a link. I have to draw the transitions from one state to another state. So I'll be using a directed line for that. You know that. Fine. And the next step is I have to provide the trigger. Fine. Or an event, I will call it as a trigger or an event. Okay, between those along the transition line. Fine. So this particular event will make me to change the state. Fine. And the last step will be I have to provide a condition. If there is a condition, I have to provide a God condition along with my events. Okay, so how do you represent it? I will be using a square bracket for that. Okay, this comes along with my event name along with my God condition. Fine. So these are the 5 basic steps to draw the state machine diagram. Fine. So next we will see how to draw this. So I'll be using this visual paradigm. We are going to see a very simple example for now. Fine. So then I'll teach you a complex example. Fine. So I'm just going to share the visual paradigm. Okay, I have taken visual paradigm community edition. Okay, so diagram, I'm going for a new. So here I'm searched, I'm having a state machine diagram. Click on it, give a next. So I'm going to use a blank page. So give a name like bank account. I'm going to take a very simple scenario. Fine. So what happens when you're going to put the money inside your account, and what happens for the what is the states will be there when you're going to withdraw the money, or you're going to deposit the money from your account. Fine. So that is what the scenario here. So we have so once you created a state machine, you can see a default there will be a initial state for me. So you know this dark circle represents the initial pseudo state for my state machine diagram. Fine. So now what I will do is I will trying to define the states first. Fine. So we have so many ways of doing it. So what I will do is I'll just click on this. You can see a line here. Okay. So I'll just click on the tab. You can see an arrow with a state. If you're going to click on each and everything, it tells you what and all type of states are there. A state with submission state, okay, with a shallow history, with a deep history, with a choice. Okay, so I'm going to take a simple one. The first one is going to be the state. Okay, so now I'm going to give the state name, for example, or I can just give like that. Yeah, fine. So now what I will do, I'll try to change a state name. Okay, like account with funds. This is my state name. Fine. You can see I created a state, and I gave a transition from the initial pseudocode to the account with the funds. Okay, we will see how to give that event and all. First I will assign these states alone now. Fine. So now I'm going to do one more states here. So just click on this state. It has to come after this. So I'll click on this particular arrow. Again the same thing. Fine. Okay, here I'm going to give a name called as a zero balance. Fine. From your like a bank account, I'm going to take a simple concept. Okay, what happens when we have an account amount in the account, and what happens if you don't have an account amount in the account. Okay, so we have two states: account with fund and a zero balance state. Okay, so now I made two states, and I made a transition for two states. Okay, now I'm going to stop this. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to the final state. You can see this is the transition final state. Click on that and just enter. Fine, you got the final state. It's a simple diagram. Fine. So now I'll give one more reply from the zero balance to the account with the fund. So I'm going to add one more transition line. So click on it. So what is the destination for me? Destination for me, account with funds. If you're going to click like this, automatically a line will be there. You can see a transition line has been generated. Fine. Then I'm going to add two more things. So what happens is when this account with fund will be changing into a zero balance. Actually, when all the amount has been removed from your account, it automatically goes to a state called as zero balance. Okay, so when zero balance is going to the account with funds, if you're going to deposit some amount inside your account, automatically zero balance state will be going to a state called as account with funds. Okay, this is a case. For example, if we already have some account amount inside this account, okay, then what happens, there will be a self transition loop when you're going to withdraw or when you're going to deposit. Fine. So what I will do is I'll create a self transition for this. Yeah, fine. So for easy convenient, I'm going to move this along that side. Yeah, fine. So I will tell you what is that event there is going to occur. Okay, I'm going to add one more transition, self transition. Click on it. You can see a self transition here. it's clear. Fine. So a simple diagram. So I stated the first point, defining the states. Okay, I didn't do that description because I couldn't find the description point here. So I just omitted the description. I think it's not supporting that particular concept because this is a community edition. It's not supporting the adding a description to this state. Okay. So the third one, I just made a transition line to each and every state. Okay. And then now I'm going to do my fourth one is nothing but I have to give the event. Okay, so I have to trigger my state by providing some event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click here. Fine. So account with funds, that is what my first transition line. So I'm just going to have a double click here. So I'm going to give a name. So what I'm going to do here is, so what event I'm going to write is I'm going to just withdraw funds. Okay, so when you're going to take some amount from the account, it may lead to a zero balance. Fine. So I triggered an event called as withdraw funds. Fine. So but initially here when I want to step into the initial thing to a state, again we have to give a line here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is open and back account. All these things are it's according to your convenient, you can give. Okay, for this particular transition line, the event is open a bank account, then jumps into the state called as account with funds. Fine. So now I made a event called as withdraw funds, and now I'm going to have a transition line from zero balance to account with funds. So now I have to specify the event here. So again, make a double click, you can have a guess now. So when this zero balance is going to move to an account state, when we are going to deposit some fund. So I'm going to trigger an event called as deposit fund. Fine. So this happens, but we have two more self transition. Fine. So what I will do is this particular self transition is click on it. Okay, so what I will tell actually, for example, if I'm going to have an account with an amount. Okay, so when I'm going to take an specific amount from the, I'm going to withdraw some amount, what happens is it doesn't goes to zero balance. Okay, there will be amount there, so I'll call this as a self transition. Fine. So I'll make a withdraw fund. After withdrawing also, what happens is again goes and points to the particular status. It doesn't goes to a zero balance. Fine. So that is what the event for me here. The same thing, if you're going to deposit something, fine. Double click on it. I got a message. So deposit. Fine. So these are the events. Fine. So now I made my 4 steps. My 5th one is I have to mention the conditions wherever I need. It's not compulsory that I have to add the condition for each and every event. Okay, so as well as it's not compulsory that I have to generate an event for each and every transition also. Fine. We can have an automatic trigger also inside my state. Okay, but here I'm explicitly writing the events. Fine. So now I will try to put the conditions wherever I need. Fine. So I'll go for the first one. The first one is a withdraw funds here. So I will just click on it. Right click on it. We have a term called as open specification. Click on the open specification. Fine. Here I'm going to give a got condition. Fine. So what is the condition actually? When an state is going to get inside the zero balance. So when the balance is going to be zero, we can say, and a state will be come inside the zero balance state. We can say like that, when I'm going to withdraw the fund, okay, so when my balance is equal to zero, automatically what happens actually, an account with a fund will be jumped into a zero balance state. Fine. So the same thing I'll do for one more condition. I will add one more condition for withdraw fund actually. So when I will withdraw fund actually, when the balance is greater than zero, then only the withdrawal will happen. Fine. So I'll put a condition for this also. Just I'm going to click on it. Fine. You can see here automatically the balance will be in a format with a square bracket. Okay. So when I want to withdraw a fund, when my balance is greater than zero, go and withdraw the fund along with my condition. Fine. So this is how we will be doing the simple state machine diagram. Fine. So we will see an example now. We have two more examples. Fine. So I will just teach you the flow of the example. We are not going to work on this. Fine. So you try to work with the examples here. We have so many options. You can see in the left hand side, like submission state. We'll be having so many, all the points here, like entry point, exit point. Try to use all these symbols in your state machine diagram. Fine. So now we'll go for the PPT. Can you give me an okay message? Till now it's clear. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah, fine. Thank you. So I'll go for the PPT session. Fine. So the example I've taken here is the an ATM machine again. Fine. So here we will see the types of states also here. Okay, how to represent the state. Fine. You can see here. I'll take a pen. Fine. So here is my initial state, and I'm having an off state. Okay, this means that an ATM is off. Fine. So from the off state, when the ATM is on, so what and all happening till a person is using a card, so what is going to happen? That is what I'm represented here. Okay, so a state machine of a bank ATM. Fine. So I made small states here. You will see the flow of this state machine diagram. Fine. So the first one, it's going to be in off state. Okay, so when you're going to trigger an event like turn on, this is an event turn on along with an action startup. You can see turn on slash, we're going to use a slash. It means that I'm going to add an action or a behavior, we can call it. Okay, so the turn on will, what will do actually, it will make an action called as startup. Okay, so then the ATM will be moving from the off state to a self test state. Okay, so under the self test state, fine, so what happens is, if it is if leads to some failure, when you're going to on the ATM but it's not in awning, means it goes inside a event called as out of service. Okay, at that time a failure event has been triggered. Okay, so it's automatically going to an out of service. Fine. But if it is not a failure, by default you can see we have no event here, but automatically it goes to an idle state. Okay, we call this as an automatic trigger. I'm not specifying any event here. Okay, if there is a self state, if some failure is triggered, it goes inside the out of service. Okay, but it is not a failure, it defaultly it comes inside this idle state. I can also do like this without giving an event, without specifying any event. Okay, because I specified an event there, it becomes false, means it gets inside this idle state. Okay, now my ATM machine is the idle state. Fine. So this particular state, which we can tell it's waiting for the customer to interact. That is what this idle state will tell you. Okay, so when we have an event here, card inserted. Okay, because this idle will be interacting with the customer, so it's going to have an event called as card inserted. Okay, you can see I'm using a server serving customer state. Okay, here I'm using a composite state. Okay, so we have so many substates like customer authentication, selection, transaction, and transaction. These are the substates. Okay, so I'll call this as a composite state. Okay, a composite state which consists of substate or a submission. Okay, so this is how we represent it. Fine. So my state name is going to be serving customer. Okay, this inside this we have so many states, substates. Fine. So when the card is inserted, this particular serving customer state will be activated. Fine. So now we can see I'm having two activities are there. I'm including two activities. I can also write like this. Fine. So the two activities are entry and exit. Okay, entry in the sense the action for entry is I'm going to read the card. Fine. So once a card has been read, this gets inside and customer authentication. Since it's a substate, again I'm using an initial state for it. Okay, here I'm using a symbol, like we call the symbol called as decomposition indication icon. We call it as a decomposition indication icon. Fine. So this tells you somewhere in my in somewhere I'm just made this elaboration of this customer authentication. Fine. So it's a state machine diagram. Fine. I made into a small format, so I've used an icon here. Okay, we'll be giving a link to a state machine to another state machine. Fine. So this is going to be a different state machine. For simplicity, we are using only the state machine name along with an icon. Okay, I'm putting this inside your substate. Fine. And we have something called a selecting transaction and transaction. Fine. So this is a way. So after completing this, what happens actually, it sends an reply message. This will be a reply message. For example, it gets inside the ideal state. I can say this is going to be the ideal state. Okay, so when the ATM is in the ideal state, okay, I'm going to trigger an event called as card inserted. Okay, so it gets inside. We have an activity called as entry. So read the card, do the operations, and another activity called as exit. Once the exit happens, it ejects the card out. Okay, again this ATM will be going into the ideal state, back to the ideal state. Okay, when you're going to have an event called as cancel. Fine. So but what happens if there is some failure? Okay, so again what happens, it gets inside this out of service. Okay, if you're going to have if the card is not able to read, okay, so what happens, it gets into a failure. The failure event has been triggered and it gets into this out of service state. Fine. So this is what the simple diagram for representing the how the ATM states has been changing from off state, okay, till the customer reads the card. We can represent like this. Fine. So I made it some more state like maintenance and all. Fine. So if it is idle, fine, so it sometimes it goes into the service for maintenance. If it is failure, again is go to the out of service. Okay, from out of service also it can be changed to a maintenance. Fine. So these are the things about the a state machine diagram. Here we are having two important things. One, I'm representing this in a composite state also. I'm giving a concept called as composite state. Okay, composite state is nothing but we'll be having a substate. A substate can be either one or two or three. So many states can be there inside this composite state. Fine. It can be a substate machine also. Fine. So if it is a machine, it will be represented by a symbol like this. By this. Fine. So hope it's clear. So we'll go for the next diagram. When you're going to try with the software, try with all those things. Okay, because we are creating a composite and we are giving these activities, actions, and all. Fine. So which to click and how to go, so you can see these and all. Fine. Give a try. This is also again the somewhat similar, like the same concept. I'm using a composite here. Fine. So you can hear the example is like driving the vehicle. Okay, it can be a bike or car. I'm going to driving, so what and all happens. Okay, so the initial state will be the off state of my vehicle. Okay, that is what this off state. Fine. So now we can see I am having an event. Okay, along with the action. Fine. So ignition on is going to be the event, and the action is going to be the start vehicle. Fine. So once it's going to be when the event has been triggered, the state will be the vehicle on, from off to on. Okay, now I'm representing this as a composite because inside this I'm going to have so many substrates. Fine. So here I'm not mentioning the entry, exit and all, but what I'm doing here is I'm just putting this activities inside my state itself. For example, forward is a state which is going to have an activity do. We can also mention like this, or we can just generally we can write like this. Fine. So now it's getting into the neutral state. From neutral to forward, when it jumps into the forward, if you're going to have a speed of greater than equal to 0, it's going into the forward state. Okay, again from forward back to the neutral. Fine. Again from neutral I can go for a reverse state. When I go for a reverse state, actually when the speed is less than equal to 0, again from reverse I can go for a neutral state. Okay, it's a simple what to say, forward and reverse state I'm telling about that. Okay, if we are going to turn off the vehicle, again is gets inside this turn off state. Fine. So this is also a way to represent your state machine diagram. So here I'm telling you that the activities you can give inside this state itself. No need to mention here, we can just write inside the state itself. If we need entry, we can give. If we need exit, we can give. If we need do activity, we can write the do activity. Fine. It's not compulsory we have to write all those three things. Fine. So based upon the problem, we can write all those things. Fine. So this is about the driving a vehicle status. Fine. Next we will see one more thing, and yesterday we saw that, and we call this as a history pseudocode. So how do you represent the history pseudocode? Using an circle along with the H. So what is the concept in this is, so where you're going to stop, it will be resuming from that. That is the concept of history. Okay, we saw an example like playing a video player. If there is a power off, what happens when you're going to on it again, it starts from where you left. Okay, so I'm taking like a washing machine state, like a washing, rinsing and spinning. These are the states. Fine. It's a running state for us inside the washing machine. Okay, if there is a power cut, what happens? Fine. So here you can see how to represent our history. So put this H inside our running state. Fine. So this is also we call as a substate, because we have a running as a state. Inside this I'm having a washing, rinsing and spinning. Fine. And we have a power off state. I'm going to have a transition between the power off and the running state. Fine. So we will be using an H here along a circle. Fine. So if the power comes, it will be started where it's been stopped. Okay, it won't be starting from the first. Fine. A good example is your washing machine. If you're going to have a power off at the rinsing stage, okay, when the power turns on, it starts from the rinsing only. It doesn't start from the washing. Fine. It's a good example for it. Fine. So this is the way we will be representing the history pseudocode. Fine. A circle. Inside the circle, I have to represent an H symbol, H alphabet. Okay. This should be kept inside my running. Okay, which is the running, I have to replace that. I have to indicate there actually, not somewhere else. Fine. So we will see some more examples in later session. Fine. We have planned to take a case study. Fine. From that case study, we will be generating all the diagrams, starting from the use case to class diagram, then your sequence, then comes your collaboration, then comes your state machine activity and all those things. Fine. So don't worry, at the end of this maybe unit 3 we'll be seeing like that. Fine. For now I'm taking different examples to tell the concept, how they are implementing this composite, how they are using this history pseudocode state, like that. Fine. Hope it's clear. So can I proceed the next part? Can you give me an okay if it is okay? If you're able to understand, just give me a message so that I'll just continue the next part of my slide. We're not saying a very tedious example, we're saying very simple examples. Fine. I got only one reply. What about others? Slept? If you're not clear, you can just tell me. I will just repeat it once again. Hey students, you can be a little more interactive. No replies. Clear, ma'am. It's clear, ma'am. Fine, fine. Okay, thank you. So we'll go for the QA. Fine. So now it's your time for you. So give me the answer. Can you give me the answer for the first one? The element of state chart diagram which uses round corner boxes to represent a situation of an object is classified as, yeah, the option is B. So always I'll be using a rounded rectangle box to specify the state. Okay, so the answer is going to be state. Fine. So can you give me the answer for the second one? Yeah, I'm getting so many answers. The answer is going to be B. Fine. So how do you represent your initial state? We'll be using a very dark circle. Okay, so it's going to be a black circle, you can say. So it's going to be the B option, initial state. Fine. Swati, your answer, I think your answer is wrong. It's not 0 degree state. We call this as a initial state. Fine. Can you give me the answer for the third one? If you see the expression, I'm having an expression there along a line in state diagram. It would represent the following. So what it represents? Yeah, super. We will be having an option called as C. That is what the condition statements, a God or a condition statement. Fine, super. What is the answer for the last one? Consider this as A, B, C, and D. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting the answer. The answer is yeah, if you want to mention the action, how do you mention it? I have to use a slash for it. Okay, so the answer is going to be the B part. Fine, so I have to use a slash, then I have to specify the action. Okay, first specify your activity, put your slash, and then specify your action. If you're going to use this inside your state, okay, like entry slash what is action, exit slash what is action, do slash and what is action. Fine. If you're going to use this action in your transition arrow, how do you mention it? First comes your event. Okay, Then I'll be using a condition, optional for us. Okay, it doesn't mean that I have to use all these three things for an transition. Fine. Then comes your condition, and then we'll be using a slash, and I'll be mentioning the action. We call this action also called as a behavior. Fine. So the answer is going to be the B. Fine. So that's all, students, about today's class. It's over. Fine, we are done with the class. So do you have any doubts in this? Tomorrow we will start the what to say, we'll start the activity diagram. Fine. So if you have any doubts, you can just ask me.